Chapter 4. Andy. Poor unfortunate kid. Too young, too innocent for this hellish nightmare. Moria and Philip kept vigil, composed by turns, refusing to leave his side. Their faces carried the same worry I felt, love and terror braided tight. While sitting in my office, old habits surfaced. My fingertips picked at a nail, a mannerism I slipped into when I couldn't reach the answer I wanted. It used to be a cigarette between my fingers, fumbling it under and over, as if smoke could steady thought. That was before Brenda. Before and now, I thought of her, wondering what I should do. Dark thoughts snuck in. I had already failed to protect my family. How could I protect this kid from whatever predator was circling him? I pushed the guilt down and turned back to the files. I needed a plan, a choke point, a way to disrupt whatever this violence had threaded through the city. I dove back into the snippet of text and the map I'd pulled earlier that afternoon, searching for anything I hadn't noticed. The office was quiet. The rain whispered against the window, steady and unending. Folders were scattered across my desk, each one a chronicle of grief. 7 victims bound together by brutality but scattered across the city like isolated storms. I pulled the precinct's tablet toward me, its glow pale against my face, and opened the city map. With a flick, the projector lit the wall. One by one, I marked the crime scenes. At first, the dots looked meaningless, random tragedies bleeding into the sprawl of the Undercity. But when I dragged the stylus between them, lines began to converge, to intersect. Order emerged from the turmoil. A hexagram. 6 points orbiting one, with the most recent victim locked at its center. My hand slipped, the stylus clattering against the desk. My knees gave way, and I dropped into the chair, staring at the glowing pattern. This wasn't random. This wasn't a chance. Every killing was deliberate, placed with precision. I wasn't chasing just a man. I was staring into the work of a monster. I forced myself upright and turned to the computer. The map still glowed against the wall, but I needed more. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, pulling up everything I could find about the hexagram. At first, the results were predictable. Pages littered with symbols of faith, sacred geometry, protective words and whispers of folklore. Some spoke of witchcraft, others of balance and harmony. None of it seemed to connect until I found a page buried deep, old and half-forgotten, its words etched in a darker tone. The description pulled me in like a noose tightening. Sacrifices, blood, flesh, and souls were arranged in a pattern to open a gateway. The center was the key, the point where all the pain converged, the place where the veil thinned. A cold laugh escaped me, one without humor. My voice broke into the silence as I muttered under my breath, a curse that felt inadequate against the weight of what I was reading. The words clawed deeper with every line. The caster, it claimed, required 8 sacrificial souls, flesh torn as trophies. The discarded bodies had to be placed in the right position at the right time. Even if they were moved, their souls would remain locked in place, for the sacrificial bodies had swallowed teeth, fingernails, and hair, proteins that anchored the souls during the ritual. Their final moments had to be drenched in fear and pain, their essence saturated with terror. Only then would the offering be complete. And when it was, a reward was not power in the way men imagined it. No, it was passage. The portal would open, tearing the world apart just enough for something to slip through. Time and space would bend to the will of whoever held the key. And when the traveler was gone, all that remained was a scar, a mark of where the world had been cut open. 8 sacrificial souls, but these were all I had, 7 bodies, 1 missing. The answer was here. I could feel it breathing beneath the lines of text. I scrolled further, eyes locked on the final paragraph. It spoke of the last offering, how the terror had to be absolute, soiling innocent eyes. How the victim's final heartbeat carried more weight when drowned in unrelenting fear. The words began to blur as the implications coiled around me like a serpent. Could it be Andy? I continued reading. The caster, the text said, did not act alone. The pattern was the work of a hand guided by something older, not merely a monster but a creation of something vaster. The name crawled under my skin. Phenoveros. Described as a parasite of thought, a mind flare, it attached to a host and steered appetite and madness. It fed on fear and delivered fractured souls to its creator, Cosmos, the god of gods in those ruined tongues. The description was clinical and cruel. Select hosts whose minds were already poisoned by malice, obsession, brittle sanity, use them as blunt instruments, extract the most potent thing in a life, terror. This cosmic parasite is a deceiver, a liar. It can control and manipulate a person by projecting its intent while gripping the host's life thread. The person so attached to the nape. No living man has ever seen it, and consequently, no one knows how to kill it. The myth smelled of superstition, but the specificity cut through nonsense. 8 victims arranged, ritual geometry, the center as pivot, a being that trafficked fear and damned souls out of our world. At this moment, if this was true, I admitted it to myself. This was above my pay grade. Before I could steady my breath, there was a knock. The door creaked open, and Philip stepped in. His face carried the shame of earlier, his outburst still fresh in both our minds. He apologized quietly. I accepted at once, no hesitation. Relief softened his face. But then, his eyes drifted to the wall, to the projected hexagram. He asked what it meant. I told him what I had discovered, a ritualistic pattern carved with blood into the city itself. At first he laughed bitterly, saying he had once heard such things in passing but dismissed them as absurdity. His smile faltered as he realized I wasn't laughing back. I confessed to him that I'd been doing the same, trying to ground this case in reality, to dismiss every impossible thing as coincidence or foolishness. But the deeper I went down this rabbit hole, the more the ground gave way. Logic bent, and what remained was bizarre, unreal, supernatural. Philip descended into the sofa, his hands trembling as he asked what would happen to his son. I forced the words out. If the hexagram was real, Andy was suspected to be the final offering, the ritual center, the last sacrifice needed to open whatever waited on the other side. Philip's shoulders bowed under the weight. He stared at the floor, silent. I turned back to the desk, pulling the tablet closer, scrolling further into the text. My voice carried across the room as I read aloud on how to find this ethereal murderer. The host of the Phenoveros, it said, would always reveal itself when light struck its eyes. Red, burning eyes, a parasite that could only inhabit one body at a time. Its strength, its hunger, came not from upheaval, but from deliberate cruelty. The pain it inflicted on chosen victims, saturating them with terror until their souls broke, feeding the master it served, Cosmos. I remembered Andy's description of the murderer he saw. That was why the eyes burned red. Not by choice, not by accident, but because the host was nothing more than a vessel, a container spilling over with the pain of its sacrifices. I stopped reading. The knowledge didn't comfort me. Silence stretched between us. Both of us understood, assumed the ritual is real, and act as if it were. Whether a deranged human or something worse pulling strings, practicality didn't change. Our duty had narrowed to one thing. Andy must be protected. With our last breath if we had to. We needed to find the host before the clock ran down. Nobody could be allowed in or out of the station, except us, the officers. And then came the knock. Johnry, one of the policemen, stood at my door, his face pale, his voice pitched with panic. He said Andy was doing something. Something strange.